Turning the page from week 2 to week 3, final thoughts on the 49ers loss to the Minnesota Vikings. Did Darnold outplay Purdy? Delayed Super Bowl offseason hangover potentially for the San Francisco 49ers, and turning the page to the Rams in week 3. All that more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock here with my very special Winky Wednesday guest. No Croc with us today, but we do have a fantastic fill-in, and that is Mr. Nicholas Winkler at BD Peacock at Bay Area Wink. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We love and appreciate all of our everydayers out there, and welcome to all the new listeners. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Just visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now let's bring on today's guest.
Nicholas Winkler, come on down.
Can't believe it.
What's happening? Winkstradamus, the streak ends at 1 this season. 13 straight, was it, for Wink last year with his preseason picks. The streak stops at 1 this year with just a poorly timed loss in week 2 on the road at the Minnesota Vikings. My guest today, Mr. Nicholas Winkler. All the regulars, all the everydayers out there know who Wink is, my former radio colleague, my former podcast co-host before I started doing Locked On 49ers. And as he is sometimes known, the voice of the fan. Wink, what does the voice of the fan say about a week 2 loss to the Minnesota Vikings against Sam Darnold? And by the way, the guy that was most excited about that win in the locker room when Sam Darnold got back in?
Nick Mullins.
The other former 49ers quarterback on that Vikings roster.
Yeah, it was a rough one, right? It was one of those, like, we probably should have seen it coming. They haven't won in forever in Minnesota. Anytime you got that 10 a.m. start time, especially on a short week, like they felt like they were asleep. They were kind of sleepwalking through the first quarter. What to go? Punt, block punt, downs. Like, that's not how you start a football game on your first 4 possessions. It was just an ugly game all the way around. I feel like if you look at the box score, you'd be like, oh, the Niners won in almost every single category except for the one that mattered the most, which was points. And as a 49er fan, it was tough to watch because it felt like they were coming back, right? You're like, oh, just got to get this stop. We'll get the ball back. And then Darnold converts on the third down. Oh, another third down. Here we go. Get a stop. And then he does it again. And it's like, all right, this is not our day. And unfortunately, it wasn't for the 49ers.
What's funny? The box score doesn't tell the story because it felt like the 49ers were lucky to even have an opportunity to win it late. And the box score makes it look close. The final score made it look close. What were your thoughts when they went 97 yards after a goal line stand? And did you like the aggressive Kyle Shanahan 4th down plays? Because we usually say he's too conservative and want him to go for it. They went for it on 4th down, didn't get it, and it went 97 yards the other direction.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it, right, and you're like, that's points. Here we go. At the time, I loved it. I was like, yeah, let's go. Let's put it in. We got Mason. You still had everybody in there. Deebo, Kittle. I'm still looking for something, anything from Brandon Aiyuk. Like, I loved it at the time. Obviously, in hindsight, it sucks. But I got to be honest with you. I hate to say it, but I almost called the big touchdown. When it was on the 2-yard line, I looked at my daughter. I was like, oh, man, this is the kind of time when it's a 98-yard touchdown. And then they got 1 yard. And then it was a 97-yard touchdown right after. She's like, you called it. I'm like, no, I didn't call it. I almost called it.
The Winkstradamus was right in the wrong place. That was the problem.
Man, that was brutal. That was rough because you love the aggressive play. I love it. I love a good early 4th down call. Like, let's go for it. Let's try to get some points. Try to win this football game.
Yeah, and the 49ers have the type of defense where you say, oh, okay, well, if you don't get it, you get the ball at the 2-yard line. Good luck.
And with the way Fred Warner was playing football in this football game, the way he's played so far this year, like, you love it. You think, okay, they're going to stop it. They might even get a safety on the next play. And unfortunately, we saw what happened. It didn't work in the Niners' favor. And I don't love how much heat, like, Kyle Shanahan's getting for this and how much heat my boy Wishnowski's getting for the block punt. Like, guys, it's week 2. Relax. It sucks. Nobody likes to be 1-1. Nobody likes to lose football games. This is a road game in a place we don't win on a short week. Like, just remember that. Take a page out of the old Aaron Rodgers playbook and just relax.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody out there projected the 49ers to go 20-0. Like, they're going to lose the game, and this was the one that didn't go great. You got to fix it now, and that's one of the big keys there. You mentioned Brandon Aiyuk, and we talked about on yesterday's podcast, me and Croc did, about okay, Deebo Samuel's out, Christian McCaffrey's out. Okay, Trent Williams had a rough game. You got paid, you held out. You got paid for a reason. It's time to be that dude. Brandon Aiyuk, you got paid for a reason. It's time to be that dude. You got to be the number one option on this offense right now, and you're getting paid to be that. And going back and watching the game, Wink, Aiyuk was open quite a bit.
Yeah.
There were other receivers that were open quite a bit, and Purdy didn't quite see him. So I think Brian Flores really did a number on Brock Purdy in that game. And it was probably one of the worst Brock Purdy games, even though he ended up throwing for a decent amount of yards. And, there was not a ton of really ugly plays or ugly interceptions or anything, but he was sacked a lot. He was holding the ball longer. There were guys underneath that were open, and he just kind of wasn't hitting them. It was just Brock Purdy was a little bit off. And you hate to say it, but Sam Darnold outplayed him on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think Flores outcoached Shanahan, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, it's not always on Brock because, as we said while in the preseason waiting for this Aiyuk contract, he's not a number one wide receiver because he's not the number one option in this offense. And you saw it on full display on Sunday. He was maybe open, but he was maybe the third progression, right? He was maybe the fourth. Like, he wasn't the main option because he hasn't been the main option in the 49ers offense, which is weird why they paid him so much money. Well, like you said, here we go. Here's your chance. Give the guy 15 targets. Throw it at him a ton. See what they can do. Every play should be schemed looking for Aiyuk first, and then we'll do something else. Set up little bubble screens. Get the ball in the guy's hands and see what he can do, because you mentioned it. Trent Williams did not have a good game. Probably his worst game as a 49er that we've seen. It was ugly. There were a few times where we're like, oh, God, that was Trent again? Like, no. He looked so great last week. What happened? And you just hope that they get it fixed, right? You hope that you move forward. You learn a lot from this game. You learn that, maybe you do need something out of the backfield that we saw Deebo do it in game one, right? Where he ran a couple times. He was doing all kinds of patterns out of the backfield. But we don't have Christian McCaffrey and Jordan Mason. He's not that guy. Do you have that guy? Is Garendo that guy? Is someone else that guy? Maybe you bring Cowing in there and put him in the backfield and run him out on some Deebo options. Maybe it's Bell. I mean, maybe it's someone that just kind of throws that curveball at the defensive coordinator, because it felt a lot like they knew what was coming over and over and over on Sunday. And it was really frustrating to watch that kind of football.
Great thing is, in the NFL, things change rapidly week to week. So I expect a different 49ers team, and hopefully we get the same Rams team we saw the first couple of weeks, because they have laid a couple of eggs, and we'll turn the page to the Rams here in a little bit. But a prime opportunity for the 49ers to get right at Levi's South in week 3 against the Los Angeles Rams. Which brings me to the next topic, Wink, which is going to be, we talked about Trent, talked about Aiyuk. Did we kind of see, because it was like all of a sudden, hey, everyone's signed, vibes are high, you go out Monday Night Football and you beat the brakes off the Jets. It's like, oh, vibes are back, everything's good, everyone's back, all gravy. And I've seen more questions now. Again, it's like, oh yeah, you know what, maybe there is that hangover, maybe there is that Super Bowl hangover that we hear so much about, maybe the offseason hangover with weirdness, and seeing Trent not playing at 100%, seeing Aiyuk out there for only 85% of the snaps. Maybe there is an off-season hangover. So I want your thoughts on that next week, and then we will talk a little bit about the Rams, of course, Wink's Wish Watch as well after week 2 coming up. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by DoorDash. Football season is back, which means it's time to order your favorite game day food, snacks, and drinks on DoorDash without missing a play. Whatever your game day favorites are, your watch party favorites, you can find them at DoorDash. Maybe you just need more ingredients to whatever you are making and cooking up yourself at home. And have you ever gone to somebody else's watch party and you show up and they're like, hey, we got carrot sticks and hard seltzers and you're like, I might have to pick up the DoorDash app and get this party correct here because I want something a little bit stronger to drink. I want something a little bit game time-ier, right? Something that you're really ready for football. You want to get that pizza, you want to get the wings, whatever it is, you can find. Maybe just need batteries for the remote control. You can get that at DoorDash as well, right to your door in a dash. I think that's why they came up with the name. And all you have to do is use promo code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off up to $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order with DoorDash. Limited time offer, terms apply. Promo not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 and over to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. And, FanDuel, we talk about FanDuel here on the podcast all the time because they are America's number one sportsbook, and they're America's number one sportsbook for a reason, because they have offers like this now through September 22nd. You better act fast because all FanDuel customers can bet just $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime, and you can bet on those San Francisco 49ers to win the Super Bowl at FanDuel. You can bet on all the prop bets, offensive, defensive players of the year. Fred Warner looking like a good bet for DPOY right now. Rookies of the year, and so much more. Every sport, all that action on FanDuel. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com. So what do you think, Wink? Super Bowl hangover, off-season hangover? Does the vibe all of a sudden feel a little bit different after a week 2 loss than it did when the Niners are riding high after a week of good news? Because it seemed like bad news for a lot of the offseason news. Hey, a week straight of good news. Aiyuk signs, Trent Williams signs, he's back. Not great news with the Ricky Pearsall story, but good news that he came through it okay and was going to be all right. Come out week 1, Monday Night Football. Huge win against the New York Jets. And then vibes feel a little stinkier again. And 49ers fans, the ones that listen to this podcast and have hit me up on social media that are commenting, a little bit upset about this week 2 win, maybe more so than a single loss, especially against someone who's not a division rival. Like vibes took a hit this week, Wink.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of had that feeling of, 49er fans maybe 15 years ago, right? When it was just like, constantly you'd hear news about the 49ers and it was like, oh, another 49er arrested, like it was just that over and over and over, right? I mean, there was a couple of years there where it was like almost ashamed to be a 49er fan. Well, this offseason's kind of felt like that. Trent Williams holdout. You had the Aiyuk holdout. And then you're like, okay, it's starting to get back. Ricky Pearsall gets shot. And you're like, what is going on? And CMC is out. And he's out for a while, and he could be out for half the season. He may never come back. There's all this talk. And then you're like, okay, it's all right. We got to win. Everything's fine. Short week, go to a place we can't win. Proved again that we can't win there. And then we lose Deebo for a couple of games. And Trent has a horrible game. Like, it's been a rough start to the season. It's been a rough 3 months now as a 49er fan, 2.5 months, whatever it's been. So there's this feeling, right, of, oh, God, just dread of just, oh, God, is this going to be a super long season? Is this going to be ridiculous? Well, you mentioned Fred Warner. He's having a great start to this season. Best middle linebacker in football. Brock Purdy's leading the NFL in passing right now in yardage. I mean, he's out there slinging it around. Might have to do it again this week. So you just need to look forward. It's not about the rest of the 15 games this season. It's about the next one game. It's about this weekend at a place that the 49ers win against a coach that Shanahan dominates. And you got to think, okay, we've had it rough for injuries. The Rams have actually had it more difficult. They've lost linemen. They lost both of their star receivers. Like, they're in a tougher spot right now than the 49ers are. So if couldn't be a better time to play the Los Angeles Rams than right now, coming off of that tough loss. You're going to Levi South, go pick up a win. Everything's going to feel a whole lot better after that weekend. Now, if that doesn't happen, if they go down there and all those things working for them don't happen and the 49ers don't get out of there with the win, you're going to have, those people that were starting to freak out, it's going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
So let's hope the 49ers can figure something out, win this football game any way they need to. It doesn't need to be a dominant win. It doesn't need to be 30-3 or anything like that. Just go in there, get a W, move to 2-1, and kind of just you're taking your lumps, right? That's what you do early in the season a lot of times in football, in any sport, but especially in football. When you take a loss early in the season, it's like, oh God, we're at 500. That's only one game. There's a lot of games still to be played. It sucks. Nobody likes to lose. But I like how it's stacking up this weekend for the 49ers. I really think we're going to see a huge game out of Brandon Aiyuk. I bet we have a big game out of Jennings as well. Is this the week that Cowing starts to get a little bit of run there? Maybe he's pulled in there in that Deebo role. I don't know. I hope so. I'm kind of excited to see what Shanahan schemes up this weekend without Deebo Samuel, without Christian McCaffrey, just to see who he trusts, what he wants to run.
I mean, if it's not an Aiyuk heavy game plan, then I don't know why you're paying Aiyuk $30 million a year. Because if now's not the time, then I don't know what the time is with no Deebo and no Christian McCaffrey. And look, the 49ers run the ball well even without McCaffrey too. Back-to-back 100-yard games for Jordan Mason. And so, look, it was one game. The 49ers lost the game. If they fall in week 3 to the Rams, we can start having some hard conversations, I think. But as banged up as the 49ers are, the Rams are in even worse shape there. 49ers went on the road, played a team that's well coached, the team that's given the 49ers problems in the past. It's one game, you have hiccups, you learn from it, you get back on track. It's no big deal as long as you get back on track. And I expect the 49ers will in week number 3, going to play the Rams. So the Rams here, if we start looking ahead a little bit, the Rams are missing 14 starters, if I'm reading this correctly right now, including their 2 top receivers. You got Puka Nacua, you got Cooper Kupp that's now out. He might go on IR. We know that Matthew Stafford's shoulder or elbow, or whatever it is hanging on by a thread. So we'll see what happens there. And, it's a ton of offensive line injuries. They got injuries on the other side of the ball as well. So this is a banged up team that's looked awful and just got boat raced in week number 2. So both these teams coming off a loss are going to be angry. I think the 49ers are going to be a little bit more angry because I think there's more expectations there with inside the locker room than there are for some of those Rams players. Not to say that the Rams don't expect to win, but I just think the expectations are slightly different for some guys. First of all, who you putting on the waiver wire from the Rams? Is it Whittington? Is it Tyler Johnson?
Right. It's got to be somebody. They don't have a rush game. They've tried to get it started these first 2 games and they haven't been able to get anything going. So it's going to be just all Stafford all day trying to pick apart, the 49ers secondary. And I kind of don't look past Tutu Atwell too, right? I mean, a guy who last year had some big games for the Rams. So I bet they spread it all around. I bet you're going to see 6 or 7 guys with receptions for the Rams. I don't think maybe one guy will stand out, but I don't think it'll be on purpose. It'll be like, oh, he was the third option and he kept checking down to him and he ends up with 7 catches. I mean, that sort of thing.
If there's one position that they had some depth as wide receiver, they got Demarcus Robinson as well. So they have some bodies to fill in there. They don't scare you at all. Good chance Jair Brown is back fairly deep and not getting beat over the top. And George Odom or Malik Mustafa or Talanoa Hufanga, whoever starts at strong safety, I think they're going to make sure that they don't get their seam split and get beat over the top this week. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be a tough road for the Los Angeles Rams here in week number 3 against the San Francisco 49ers. And I want to talk really quick about Christian McCaffrey and the loss of McCaffrey, because people are talking about it as if it's a big loss, and clearly it hasn't been in the running game. But the one place I can see Christian McCaffrey being a loss for the 49ers and has maybe changed things, and Kyle maybe is slow to come around to how he wants to change up how he calls plays, because having Jordan Mason in the backfield is just different just by him standing there, and it's 24 instead of 23. And I think there is so much gravity toward Christian McCaffrey in the 49ers offense. So teams just treat it differently. So I think that might be the reason that maybe McCaffrey might be missed more than what the box score, especially the rushing totals, say. We know he's a good receiver out of the backfield. It doesn't look like Shanahan's really trying to dial much up for throwing the ball to Jordan Mason. He's only got 2 catches in 2 games so far, and he's been open on some plays where Brock Purdy could have hit him. And And so I wonder if there's just a little bit of an adjustment period here in the early going of the season with Kyle Shanahan trying to figure out how he wants to call plays just because of how defenses treat the 49ers without Christian McCaffrey back there. And
Yeah,
if
I
he
mean,
should change at all.
well, that's just it. Has he just negated a whole chunk of his playbook because
Right.
McCaffrey's not there? So then it's even easier for a defensive coordinator to scheme against that. Maybe he does need to still run a lot of those plays that he would run with McCaffrey, and just hope that Mason can figure out the route, or again put somebody else back there that can, because Mason looked great in his pass blocking. I watched a lot of footage of him from this past game where he picked up the blitz. He did exactly what he needed to do to protect Brock Purdy, and he did it repeatedly, over and over again. So you love that if you're Kyle Shanahan, of course, if you're Brock Purdy. But do you need to then chip him out and maybe do a little screen pass or something? Something to
He
keep
looked
the
good
defense.
catching the ball.
I know he's
He
looked
looked good in
great.
camp doing it, and he looked good in the first couple
Yeah.
of weeks with minimal targets. But I think it's something you could utilize.
Let's
You don't have
go.
to completely go away from it. The other thing, Deebo's out, so they can't do it. Another thing I would like to see from Kyle, and I've talked about this since the early wide back days, is throw it to Deebo when he's in the backfield.
Yeah.
So run
Set up
routes
screen to
out of the
Deebo.
backfield. Yeah. And
They
kind of
tried in week one. There was a nice little Texas route, little over the middle there that they just missed. But another thing too, before we get too far off of this game, I really want to talk about Brock Purdy and what he needs to do for the 49ers, because he is working through his progressions, and it's great, and it's really solid to see. But what I want from him is just, he's just standing in there too long. Get through 1, 2, and if 3's not there, you need to get out of that pocket. I'm seeing way too many times where it's just shrinking up on him, and that terrifies me, because we know what happened to Brock Purdy in the NFC Championship game a couple years ago. We see what happens when quarterbacks get rolled up on. I'm concerned right now because Brock Purdy's kind of the last thread right now for the 49ers. He's the last thing giving us hope, right? Where it's like, okay, we still got Brock. All right, and we still got Kittle and we got Aiyuk, but we got to have that guy to get them the ball. And if Brock Purdy wants to be making what these top-tier quarterbacks are making in the NFL, this is the time to prove it right now. When you don't have McCaffrey, when you don't have Deebo, when you are looking at you'll have Aiyuk, and then it's like, I got Jennings, or I've got these unproven wide receivers out there, and it's like, can he thrive in a situation like that? Is he worth 40, 50, 60 million dollars, what these top quarterbacks are getting paid? This is when we'll find out.
I want to talk more about that. What the 49ers look like in week 3 might be what they look like in 2026. You know what I mean? So let's get a glimpse of what this might be, I think, in week 3 as well. More about the Rams and, of course, Wink's Wish Watch coming up next. This episode of Locked On 49ers brought to you by Game Time. Game Time is the place to find tickets, and especially those last-minute ticket deals for NFL football games, college football games, baseball, any sports tickets, any concert tickets, comedy shows, theater events, all of them. You can find them at Game Time. And Game Time now has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out all the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats. You don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets for some events that are in really big venues, like, for example, an NFL football game. And you can save up to 60% on last-minute tickets, by the way, with the Game Time app. You got to turn on the all-in pricing. I love this feature. You toggle on all-in pricing, no surprise fees at checkout. I hate the surprise fees when I'm searching for tickets, when I'm buying concert tickets. I want to see everything up front so I know what it's going to cost. And, of course, the panoramic view from your seat. Move the phone around. You know exactly what it's going to look like in every direction before you buy. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. So it is an interesting angle, Wink, and you brought it up about, okay, Brock Purdy. Is he a $60 million man? What's that going to look like? Oh, Brandon Aiyuk already the $30 million man. Does that mean they might not be able to do a new deal or maybe even trade Deebo before his deal is done? So I think week 3 is a very interesting glimpse into the future offense of the San Francisco 49ers. We've already seen it now with Christian McCaffrey. I talked about it earlier in the offseason with what's the future plan? Well, man, Brandon Aiyuk's 26 years old. He's the guy that is the the most receiver on the team, right? He's the guy that you probably will want to have in 2 years more than the rest of them, and should be a guy who could be a true number one later, if not right now. And now Christian McCaffrey's already hurt before the season even started. Like I didn't know how quickly that was going to happen, but the running backs turn 28 and the wheels fall off. And so, hope it's not serious, and hope he's able to come back and be the guy he's always been for the 49ers. But that could be a career changer right now for Christian McCaffrey. We don't know what that's going to look like. Deebo's out. So, George Kittle's still around, and he's heart and soul. You didn't mention George Kittle, by the way, a minute ago. And I know some fans out there was like, hey, wait, still got George Kittle too, okay? Don't forget George Kittle. And I like Jordan Mason. You throw him the ball out of the backfield. Let's see what Cowing looks like. Get him a couple of plays, even if you're just forcing him the football. Get him out there for, a couple packages, and you're throwing him a screen or whatever it is. Get some work for him. Juwan Jennings, third and Juwan. Maybe we need a little first and second Juwan too in this game as well. So it'll be interesting to see what it looks like, and maybe even a glimpse at the future, especially what the team might look like built around Purdy and Aiyuk, and maybe a running back that's not Christian McCaffrey. And I think a Kyle Shanahan offense is going to be able to run the ball, but what's the passing game going to look like in that case? And we're going to see that in week 3.
Yeah, and as a 49er fan, I've been hearing a lot of dread and a lot of worrying and this and that. And I'm just like, guys, let's look on the bright side of this. Like you just said, I'm excited to see what that's going to look like this weekend. I'm excited to see what it's going to look like without those kind of security blankets for Purdy, right? For that ability for him to just open it up, for him to step back there, throw it. Maybe they end up running the ball 35 times again. Maybe it's a big Jordan Mason game and they dominate it that way. That's fine. That being said, there's still going to need to be those times where Purdy makes a play, third and Juwan, like you said, first and second Juwan. I bet he's starting opposite Aiyuk. I mean, you paid the guy a bunch of money to be a receiver on your football team, and every time they throw the guy this football, he seems to make a play. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Jennings. Most of all, he's probably the number one guy I'm most excited about in this game, to see how he would be as a number 2 receiver, because he's always been number 3. Even when he's out there and there's 2 receivers set, he's still the 3rd option or the 4th option. But I'm excited to see what he's going to be like if they're going for him on first down, if they're really just trying to work him over the middle and maybe break the seam with Aiyuk deep. I I just want to see what this offense looks like. You said it's a glimpse towards the future. I'm not against that, because if you really look at the numbers, it kind of adds up, right? It's going to be really difficult to keep all these guys year after year after year with these huge contracts. You're going to have to renegotiate them time and time again and really just keep pushing that big drop off to the future, or you're going to have to trade some guys. And you're going to have to kind of reimagine what this San Francisco 49ers offense looks like. And maybe it does look a lot like what we're going to see this weekend. I'm excited. I'm excited to let this loss past us. It's okay. We got a couple injuries. Every team has injuries. It's time to move on and come together as a team, as a franchise, as a fan base, and really just get excited for heading down to Levi's South and taking care of the division foe. Let's go.
Yeah, it's just one loss. You lick your wounds. It was a short week on the road, tough place for the 49ers to play. It's not, this isn't the first team that lost in Minnesota, right? And so you get back home, you get back to Levi's South, which feels like home, and you get your full week of rest, and you go down there and you win a football game. Lost against the Los Angeles Rams, against the division foe, push them even further into the cellar. By the way, the 49ers are in third place right now because of the conference. They lost the in-conference game, was their loss. So they're actually tied with the Arizona Cardinals, but Arizona Cardinals have the tiebreaker currently if you're looking at wild card placement already after 2 weeks of the NFL season. Seattle Seahawks 2-0 in the West right now. So it's going to be a long one. And Rams worse than a lot of people thought. Injuries are going to make that even worse. And the Cardinals might be a little bit more ready to play than I think a lot of people expected too. So it's not going to be a cakewalk of a division for the 49ers. And get back in the win column here. You had them winning this week, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Levi's South, come on. They don't lose down there. Yeah.
We got to get the Wingstradamus back on track too. I don't like that. I don't like that early season loss for the Wink picks either. So we got to get back right there, get back on a 12-13 game streak for the Wink.
I mean, the next 4 games are set up really nicely for the 49ers, all on the West Coast. You got Levi's South, 2 at home, and then you head up to Seattle. So not a whole lot of travel, because we saw how that 10 a.m. Start time already treated them once this year. So it's set up nicely. Hopefully we don't see another block punt too. Weeks wish watch. I mean, You can't put that on Wishnowsky. You just can't. You mentioned Odom earlier, not giving up his seam. He gave up his seam there on the punt, too. That guy came in nearly untouched, right up the middle. No chance of getting that one off.
It might have been Beal, I think.
It was both. It was the two of them. He went right between them.
Yeah, it's one of those where they're like, you never want to see your guy go, uh-oh, and be looking back at the guy like this.
Yeah, and they both did it, too. Like, oh, dang.
The punt was blocked, and Wishnowsky kind of didn't quite know what to do.
He was shocked, right? Because he's like, what? This doesn't happen. What's going on? Oh, whoops.
And he's a good tackler.
Yeah. I mean, the two he connected on, though, both inside the 20, averaged almost 50 yards. When he has time to kick the football, he does it extremely well. So, just tighten up that line a little bit. Don't let him right up the middle, and things will be much better on the week watch next week.
You had the 49ers at 12 wins this year?
I did. Still a great opportunity.
So you just gotta steal one of the losses later away, right?
Yeah, that Thursday night at Seattle, I was gonna give to Seattle. No, I'll take it back.
Yeah, we'll take it. Well, let's sweep the Seattle. Let's sweep the West. How about that? And make that division title a little bit easier, even after
starts this weekend.
Yeah, let's go. Sweep the West. That is the new slogan for the San Francisco 49ers going to the Los Angeles Rams in week 3. And of course, Croc and I will have it all broken down for you right here on Locked On 49ers post game. Thank you, Wink, for joining us once again here. Thanks to all the everydayers out there and all the new listeners. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and everywhere you get your podcasts. And make sure you check out everything else on the Locked On Podcast Network, by the way. Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Me and Matt Williamson, former NFL scout, breaking down the entire league every day. You got Locked On Fantasy, Locked On Dynasty, the new Locked On NFL. Your team covered no matter the sport on the Locked On Podcast Network. Croc and I back tomorrow. It's crossover time. Getting ready for the Los Angeles Rams on Thursday's podcast. Talk to you then right here. Locked On 49ers.
Nicholas.
801.
801. Actual retail price. Oh, $810.